Good morning, 8th graders, and welcome to virtual math class. Today we will be talking about angle relationships. Today's objective is students will be able to identify complementary, supplementary, adjacent, vertical, and congruent angles. You should remember part of this from 6th and 7th grade, but we will go over what each of those mean. So first we start with complementary angles. Complementary angles are two angles whose sum is 90 degrees. The sum means that they add up. So we have this nice example here. So we have a right angle, and we know that it's a right angle because it has the little square in the corner. So a right angle is 90 degrees, and so we can see that this right angle is separated into two parts. So we have a 30-degree angle and a 60-degree angle, and if we add those two together, we get 90. And so if the sum of two angles is 90 degrees, that means they are complementary. So now for supplementary. Supplementary angles are two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. So I have a straight line. A straight line has 180 degrees, and I can see that the straight line is divided into two angles. I have one angle that is 120 degrees and another angle that is 60 degrees. And if I do 120 plus 60, that gives me 180. So that tells me that they are supplementary angles. And now adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that are beside each other, meaning they share a common side and vertex. So our common vertex is a point that they share. And then a common side would be one full side that they share. So I would have two angles here. I have angle ADB, and then I have angle DBC. So angle ADB and angle CBD are adjacent angles. And notice that in the middle, they both have point B because that's the point or the vertex that they share. And so they both would share the side D as well. And now vertical angles. Vertical angles are angles that are opposite of each other. This means two angles will share a vertex, and a vertex only, not a side. So if I have, let's look at angle APC. So if I have angle APC, that would be vertical to angle DPB. So angle APC and angle DPB are vertical angles. So they are opposite of one another. They're opposite of one another, and they both share point P, which would be their common vertex. So that's why P is in the middle on both of them whenever we list out our angles. Okay, so now congruent angles. Congruent angles have the same measurement or degrees. We measure angles in degrees. So if I have two angles with 110 degrees that are both 110 degrees, those would be congruent. But if I have parallel lines that are cut by a transversal, and we'll learn more about that later this week or maybe next week, but they need to have the same angle measurement. So I can see that angle A and angle B would be the same size. And if I kept going, this angle here, I'll say C, and this angle here, which I'll just say D. All of those would have the same angles. And we'll learn more about that in properties of parallel lines. But right now, just know that whenever two angles are the same measurement, they are congruent. Okay, so this question says, which angles are complementary to one another? So remember that complementary means that the sum needs to equal 90 degrees. So I can see that these are perpendicular lines. I have a 90 degrees here, and remember that 90 degrees I have a straight line, so the other half would need to be 90 degrees also. So this would also be a right angle. So angles that are complementary need to add up to 90 degrees. So angle CFD and angle DFE, those two angles would add up to that right angle of 90 degrees. So angle CFD and angle DFE would be complementary because they add up to 90 degrees. Now, this one says which angles are adjacent to each other. So remember that adjacent means that they're going to share a common side. So our first is HDE. So our first option is HDE and EAH. So do those two angles share a common side? No, they do not. So those would not be adjacent. Okay, so our next option is IAJ and angle JAE. So do those share a common side? And do those two angles have a common vertex? The answer would be yes. Their common side would be JA. They both have a side length JA. And we can see that A is in the middle of both of them, which means that that would be their common vertex. So that would be our correct answer. Okay, so now on this one, it says which angle is vertical to angle EGF. So I have angle EGF right here. And remember that the vertical angles need to be opposite of the angle given. So opposite of angle EGF would be angle BGC. So angle BGC. And notice that they both have G in the middle, which means that that would be their common vertex. So they have a common vertex and they're opposite of each other, which means that they would be vertical to one another. So it says, other than itself, which angle is congruent to angle 2? So angle 2 is right here. Remember that congruent means that it needs to be the same size. So which angle would be the same size as angle 2? If you said angle 5, you would be correct. So angle 5 would be opposite, and opposite angles have the same length and same measurement, which we'll learn more about. But we can tell on this one just by looking at it that angle 5 and angle 2 would be congruent. And lastly, we have what is an angle that is supplementary to angle DEA. Remember that supplementary means that the sum of the two angles needs to equal 180 degrees, and 180 degrees would be the measurement of a straight line. So angle DEA plus another angle needs to be a straight line. So let's look at DEA. So I have angle DEA right here. And so now supplementary means that it needs to make a straight line. So I actually have two different options here, because if I'm looking at the straight line right here, I could use angle AEB. So angle AEB is an option. Or if I'm looking at this angle here, I can see that angle DEC would also be an option. So supplementary to angle DEA could be this angle here, that is angle AEB, or this angle here, that is angle DEC. Those are our two options. That concludes today's lesson. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me and let me know. I'm here to help for whatever you need.